Welcome to Hobby Clubhouse with some building tips for the figure-eye standard Hoshino Fumina. These tips are mostly aimed at more casual builders who might not have very elaborate tools and don't want to go into painting just yet. They require only some basic tools and will allow you to vastly improve the displayability of your Fumina model kit. This is a companion video to the review of this kit, so if you haven't seen it yet, do make sure to drop by and check that out. For this video, we'll be looking at 3 main improvements. Number 1, we'll be fixing the seam on the shins. Number 2, we'll be improving the texture of the skin. Number 3, we'll be applying stickers to the rest band a little bit better. So are you ready? Let's go. First, let's take care of the biggest problem, the seam on the shins. As mentioned in the review, this seam is particularly egregious because you see it no matter what angle you look at the kit, and it's far too distracting. To fix this, we're going to need one of the following. We'll need a bottle of plastic cement. It can be from any brand, and this one I have here is from Tamiya, which has a nice citrus scent and is very pleasant to use. You can use the extra thin type 2 if you like, and both work just fine. Next, you need a small container like this paint mixing tray I have here. Anything else like this glass container is also fine as long as it's not plastic. Then, you'll need some side cutters. Make sure you're not using the really nice pair and just get anything that's cheap and that'll cut through plastic, like this green cheap pair I have that's for rougher use. Optionally, a knife is good to have too, but you'll do fine if you don't have one. Next, a sanding sponge of around 400 grit is needed. This 3M one is very easy to find online or in hardware stores, and they're color coded, so you're going to look for one that's red color like this one, or it's labeled superfine. These sponges are very good to have around, and they work really well for curved surfaces and soft lines, and that's exactly what we want here for this fix. Lastly, we need one of the skin tone plastic runners. We don't need the entire thing, and we'll be using only a small part of it, so don't worry if you tossed out most of them. Once you've gathered all the tools you need, we can begin. So our first task is to make a rod to stir things, and we'll use this part of the runner to make one. But anything with a flat surface will do fine, and this is for anyone with only basic tools at hand. First, we cut a length of runner that you can hold in your fingers comfortably. And then, you'll make an angled cut at the end, like so. Then, you make an additional cut at the tip, like so. And just like that, we have our stirring rod, simple and fast. Next, we want to have our mixing tray sitting up at an angle, and to do this, you'll need to cut another length of the runner. And then, you'll grab some tape or some blue tack and stick it right to the bottom towards one edge, like so. And now, our tray sits up at an angle. Now we want to melt down some plastic from the runner. We don't want them to be too big, so just start cutting small bits off the runner and right into the tray. The smaller the bits, the easier they will be broken down by the cement a little later. We don't need a lot, so about this much should do the trick. Now, let's take the plastic cement and put a few gobs of it right into the tray. Cement like this doesn't actually harden and stick plastic like normal glue, but instead they contain acetone, which dissolves plastic. Basically, it welds 2 pieces of plastic together. Here, we'll use it to melt the plastic into a paste that we can apply onto the seam. The plastic will take a moment to break down, and about 30 to 45 minutes should be okay. But you'll need to periodically check on the mix to see if a lot of the cement has evaporated, and then, if it did, add a little bit more of it if needed. This is what my mixture looked like after 30 minutes. Not all the plastic is fully melted, but there is enough plastic in the mixture for us to use. Using our mixing rod, we'll spoon out some of the mixture and then generously apply it to the seam. You might want to tighten the fit of the pieces a little bit to make the seam a little bit smaller. The mixture should be quite pasty, so it shouldn't be too hard to fill up the gap. There's no need to be precise, so just make sure you get the seam and that's good enough. You can do the same to the shoulder joints and the waist part too, like here. When you're happy with the application, you can clean out the tray with some tissue and discard the rest of the runner because we're done with them. From here on out, we're gonna have to wait for quite some time. It usually takes around 24 hours for it to fully cure, so you'll have some time to come back to this later and, go do some other things for now. If you touch the area and it still feels a little bit rubbery, wait a little bit more. I've had to wait 2 or 3 days sometimes before the plastic hardens entirely and nicely, so your mileage may vary. But in the end, you should have something that looks like this, kind of ugly and really glossy. And this is where the sanding sponge comes in. We're going to sand the piece down and remove all the extra plastic. 400 grit is quite strong and can take off quite a lot of material with each stroke, so make sure not to needlessly sand areas that you don't mean to. You can fold the sponge up like this and focus on a smaller area to sand. Check the progress every few strokes before continuing. This process will take a while. The sandpaper is very rough, but the plastic we added can be quite thick. So be sure to be patient and resist the urge to buff it like crazy. Load up YouTube and watch some videos and take your time while you sand. Here's my piece after about 35 minutes of work on it. As you can see, the shape looks really beautiful, and though you can make out the shadow of the old line, it's hardly noticeable unless you really look. You'll also notice that the surface has been roughened now and looks a bit more powdery and pastel texture, and that's actually something we want. So this segues nicely into our second tip, which is fixing the skin tone. We'll be taking our sanding sponge and we'll be applying it to all the skin tone pieces on the kit, roughing up their textures. The buffing will soften up any sharp corners, so we want to have the arms and legs put together before buffing. The other corners that meet the clothes, we do want the sponge to soften it up because that makes the skin look more natural where it meets the clothes. Go slowly as always, and then check very closely to see if there are any particularly big scratches, and if you do see some big scratches, clean it off with some gentle circular motions. In the end, you'll still end up with some scratches if you look very closely, but it's a small trade-off for a simple fix for the skin. When you're all done with the sponge, wash off the dust, and then take an old t-shirt or any cotton piece of cloth and then buff it a little bit more. The cloth acts like a mild sandpaper and is going to make the surface a bit more uniform. But other than that, you're actually all done. That's all we need to do for the skin. But hold on, there's still the sticker on the bracelet that we still need to improve. Again, this tip is assuming you don't want very elaborate tools and setups and you just want to enjoy what's inside the box, so don't get too worked up if you have something against using stickers. For this, you can take a mechanical pencil and then, using the steel tip, run it along the gradient on the middle and have the sticker fit flush with the bracelet. Remember not to press too hard or else you'll scratch out some of the coloring like I did for a little bit right there. Alternatively, if you have a pair of tweezers, you can use the round bend to press down on the sticker like so, and you can achieve the same results. And when you've gently pressed all these side folds onto the side of the bracelet, you can set it on a flat surface and then just rub it around to flatten all the folds of the sticker onto the outer rim. And that'll do it for the bracelet. The sticker is very tricky, but if you have a bit of patience, you'll be quite happy with the results. And when all that's done, here is Fumina with a much more natural skin tone, and the seams on the shin are much better hidden. Fumina's back looks natural, and the skin against the strap looks really nice. And the waist no longer has a seam running right down the side. What's better is that all the tools you've bought for this are essential tools that will help you with many other kits. So hopefully you found something useful from this tutorial, and you'll be able to enjoy your Hoshino Fumina kit much more than before, and also for other model kits. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to be notified when there's a new video from Hobby Clubhouse. Also, come hang out with us on social media for news on upcoming videos. And I'll see you next time.